people with dementia have a full life ahead of them. And I just want to make sure that people realize that just because they have dementia or any cognition impairment, that they are still a person inside, and we have to investigate that for them. You have to find out what type of cognition impairment they have. It's really vital. Do they have Alzheimer's? Do they have Lewy body? Do they have vascular dementia? Find out what type of dementia they have. Because those with vascular dementia, if they sit down and they don't know how to start to eat, if you actually start that engine for them, depends on what part of the process they're in with their vascular dementia, how progressed they are. If you actually start that engine, they can continue. But some with Alzheimer's may not. They can start it once and then forget. So you can do a hand under hand approach. And you can actually, they feel like they're actually feeding themselves, but you're actually doing it for them. And so realizing what type of dementia they have really helps. We understand that people with dementia, that their hearing doesn't ever leave them unless they have a hearing problem, but their comprehension does. And so we think that since they're not repeating back to us or they're not answering us, we speak louder to them. And really, they're just not comprehending us. For someone to have a happier existence with dementia is, again, us being that person, for us being the investigators and finding out what they can still do. And a lot of times families will come to us saying, well, my mom used to play the piano, but she doesn't anymore. Or my mom used to knit, but she can't because she has arthritis. So it is our job and our role to make sure we modify things so that they can still do the things that once loved, or even reminisce about it, talk about it. And the thing is that we don't give people with dementia that courtesy. I know for me, when I see that light bulb go off and going, wow, I haven't knit in a long time, but even feeling the fabric, or I have not played the piano, but sitting in the music, or someone playing with me, or just giving me the opportunity to sit at a piano and talk about it. We just think that because they haven't done it in a long time doesn't mean that they still can't do something with it. They're happier. They actually will do things more independently because they actually found the self-worth within them that, wow, they thought I could do this. And even though they aren't able to verbalize some of these things, they can actually say to themselves, wow, I play the piano. I wonder what else I can do. It's really important, again, to know what type of dementia someone has, and very knowledgeable. Our nursing team needs to be very knowledgeable about medications and have to be the advocate for our residents. Sometimes we don't have to give medications, like for behavior. Why don't we change the environment? Why don't we do aromatherapy, essential oils? Why don't we just sit in a calmer space? And so sometimes medications aren't always needed. Sometimes it is the first go-to for a lot of communities. But we want to make sure that we have other options, other holistic options for our residents. And so by understanding our residents and understanding their disease process, we can actually maybe do some more holistic approaches instead of having to give a med every single time someone has a behavior or has anxiety, things like that. Some of the warning signs with cognition impairment is forgetting simple daily tasks. I already took a shower, and you know that they really have not. Maybe misplacing things, putting the sugar in the refrigerator, or putting the milk in the cupboard. And also maybe keeping really old food and saying it's still good, even though you can see that there's mold on it. But also not doing their checkbook correctly, hiding their mail, not paying their bills. Misplacing items frequently, even paranoia. That I had someone in my house the other day and they stole my purse. Those are things that you really need to start worrying about. Or when they start pulling down the shades and not opening up the curtains during the daytime because someone may just look in. Or even wandering. Wandering's huge. When they start mismanaging their own medication, because that's huge for people with cognition impairment, is that when they start mismanaging their medications, they will become ill a lot faster, and it will take time. But also another one is falls. If they've had one fall, they're going to fall again. After in-home care, if that does not work out, then ask around. Your friends, families, physicians, even at the grocery store. what is the best assisted living or memory care place in town? And word of mouth is huge. And then you want to go for a tour, but you don't want to bring your loved one who has a memory loss for that first tour, because what happens is that when you go for that first tour, there's so much information that's given, and it can be very overwhelming for the person with dementia. And it doesn't matter where they're at in their dementia, because people with dementia, they'll arise to the occasion, and once they go home, they will fail. They will start to decline. And then what happens when you go back home and you leave mom who has dementia after this overwhelming tour? Now she's probably not going to eat. She's not going to probably sleep very well. She may wander even more, and that may be the tipping point. So don't bring your loved one the first time you do a tour. You get all the information, and then pick your favorite two, and then go back and have lunch. Maybe participate in an activity. Do something fun, and not something that you have to do, but something that your loved one wants to do. The person with cognition impairment should have a decision. They should be able to make that depending on where they're at in their decline. If it's very early stage, they definitely should have that right to make a decision, because they're the ones that are going to have to live there. They need to feel that they fit in. And that's another thing with people with memory loss, is that their fact memory starts to leave, but their emotional memory always stays intact. And so it's really important for someone with cognition impairment to feel that they belong and feel that's the right place. So first signs of memory loss, you need to start touring places, even though you may not want to move for a year or 6 months or 2 years down the road. So if the loved one says, I'm not ever leaving home and I want to die in my home and I don't ever want to go to a nursing home, my suggestion would be, again, go and do the tours and then say, Mom, we're going to go out for lunch. And then you go to lunch. You don't have any expectations. If you put an expectation on someone who has cognition impairment, they're going to fail. Because then they're racing through their minds like, I have to be the certain person, I don't understand what's going to happen. You and I know if we go somewhere, we can probably predict what's going to happen. Someone with cognition impairment cannot predict. So just say, Mom, I want to take you out to lunch. And you go to lunch and you leave. No expectations. Maybe the second time you come for lunch, you walk around the community, and then you leave. Then the next time you come for lunch, and maybe sit for an activity. But you, as a loved one, sit back and allow the person with dementia participate in the activity. They need to feel involved. And sometimes family members will just say, Mom, we have to do this, and this is what we're doing. The thing is that you cannot force someone out of their home unless you have guardianship. And so that's really hard. Even if you have power of attorney, you cannot force. Even though it does happen, you legally cannot force someone out of their home. So a group home, an adult family home, may be a good choice. They are smaller. And a lot of times they have all different elements involved. And so you could have someone who may have some dementia and maybe someone who has something different. But I always say someone who has any type of cognition impairment, you really need a specialized community. Whether, again, if it being a skilled nursing with a specialized dementia unit, or a memory care community, whether it be in assisted living or by itself. But really, anyone who has dementia really needs to be in a place that has specialized people who understand dementia from the beginning to the end. You might want to consider choosing an assisted living that has a memory care attached to it for someone who has early signs of dementia. It's because they actually don't have to leave. So we do know that dementia is progressive. And so as they progress with their dementia, and as the needs start to build up, and as the care and the attention becomes stronger for that individual, then they can just gradually go over to memory care. So a checklist for a memory care community when you're touring, you definitely want to make sure they're secure. Also, one thing that you really can't just, you want to make sure that people who work in memory care are compassionate and they have passion for what they do and they're there for the right reason. And find out their policies and procedures. Find out if your loved one can stay there, live there till end of life care. What would be a reason for someone to have to move out? Every community is different of why someone would have to move out. And again, you don't want your loved one to ever have to move again, especially if they're in a memory care community. So find out that policy. But also find out their activities, their life enhancement programming, and that are they doing things just to do something, or are they doing things to give other residents a purpose? We want to make sure that every resident has a purpose in life, no matter where stage they're in their dementia, and find out how they do that. Randomly ask a care partner, how would you give my mom a life of purpose? Or how do you give this resident a life of purpose? Because residents with dementia, if they don't have a life of purpose, they lose themselves. For some people with memory loss, it's vital for them just to feel good. When you look good, you feel good, it feels like you just have more of a purpose. So, find out if they have a salon. How good is their food? How is it prepared? Is it prepared by box foods, or do they make it by scratch? So food is really big for those who are living in a memory care community. A lot of times they don't have choices of other things, but food is something that kind of gathers us together. And it actually becomes a big social event. And maybe that's their only social event of that day. But food is huge, so definitely ask about food and how they prepare it. So there can be a lot of guilt for placing someone inside of a memory care community or assisted living. But one thing that we have to realize is that you are providing the best thing for that person. We are experts in what we do. You're not going to go to a diabetes doctor when you have cancer, right? So why would you take care of someone who has dementia that has more needs than what you can provide? And wouldn't it be awesome for you to walk into that community and go, I'm the daughter, I'm the spouse, and that's what I get to be today. I don't need to be a caregiver. I don't need to be stressed out. I can actually see and participate in life with this other person. And that's what we give you.